So, well, I think we could get started now.
Yeah.
So, well, you guys heard a little bit of Kris's introduction, but I am so excited for him to be here today. It was a process, and we've been planning this for a couple months now, so I'm very excited. As he said, that he's a licensed professional counselor. He's from the great state of Oklahoma, and he's a life coach and a motivational speaker. So I will let Kris tell the rest of his story. And without further ado, Kris, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. And I just really excited to be here tonight. And I'll just kind of share a little bit about myself, what my life kind of looks like right now, and then I'll kind of frame everything in. But tonight we're going to kind of talk about what it is to be resilient, relentless, and ruthless. And I embrace that in my life, and that's maintaining an adaptive mindset always, right? So kind of a little bit about me. Married, love my life. I live in a small town, Oklahoma. My family, most of my family's all here. I work like Jessica was saying, I work full-time in community mental health. I'm a licensed professional counselor, motivational speaker, and just love helping people. I do life coaching as well. So I am always busy. For those who join later, my daughter, she's going to be born April 8th, which is really exciting. Her name is Chloe. She's going to be named after, with a K, because my name's spelled with a K. So it's really, really exciting. I got 2 Italian greyhounds. I got little doggos. I like staying busy. I do family stuff. Just live life to the capacity. One of the things that I always try to just put out there is that I'm gonna live this life until the wheels fall off, and that's my power chair, and I mean that without a doubt. Like if you guys could see, like I've went through so many tires on my Permobil. I'm about to blow these motors, and not even kidding, I already have New Motion coming for repairs, so I'm sure we're all familiar with New Motion. So all right, so talk a little bit about being resilient, relentless, and ruthless, and no matter what comes your way, how to maintain that mindset. So kind of growing up, a little bit about me. So I am a C5, C6 incomplete quadriplegic, which means that I basically just shattered my neck. I broke my neck. And I lost the use of my body, pretty much from chest down. Don't have to use my hands. I don't have the use of my triceps, and pretty much sensory impaired from about chest line down. So growing up, I always thought, I knew what my life was going to be. And what you guys can't see is that I'm about 6'7", 245 pounds. I'm a big guy. So growing up, I had 2 older brothers, and we always, sorry about that. It's just, those are spasms. We always played sports. So football, wrestling, all the above. I did very well at a young age. I want to say, like, when I played football, if you're anybody who's familiar with football, first string center, first string nose guard, and then I did a lot like the power options fullback and those type of things. But my favorite was wrestling. I did very well at it. I developed very quickly in life. I knew in my life I was genetically different, and I was much more advanced than my peers. I think there was a time in like 4th grade, not even kidding, my mom, like, I was so much taller than the teacher. Like, seriously, I went in like 6 foot 6'1", about 185 pounds as a 6th grader. So keep that in mind, right? I was always taught, resiliency, not just through my own family and life struggles and those type of things, but as an athlete, and primarily wrestling. If anybody's familiar with like lifting weights, I think when I was about a 9th grader, I was squatting in the 600s, benching in the 300s easily. It just came very naturally to me. And so a lot of that resiliency was being taught and forged through being an athlete and through faith and those type of things. And I never knew, like, because wrestling's hard. If you've never seen what wrestling is all about, like real collegiate, like wrestling, it's very hard. We torture ourselves there. That's what we do. So it's working out for 3 hours, running miles. We're doing, just pushing ourselves. There's tournaments and all those type of things. So, what I didn't realize then is, like, a lot of those things that were taught in my mind and disciplines and things like that were going to help me later on in life. Right. when I was in ninth grade, they didn't have enough. Well, they didn't really have anybody who could wrestle with me. So I went up to varsity really quick. So I'm up there with my brother practicing with him. He was almost a senior. And so that's what life was about: wrestling, lifting weights, tournaments on the weekends, things like that. And so leading up to having a spinal cord injury, I thought my life was going to be going to, I'd be a walk-on easily at University of Oklahoma. I was already being scouted at a very young age, go wrestle, scholarship, try to figure it out from there. I didn't really like push myself academically. And so when I was younger, I had much more of a fixed mindset. Like, I'm going to play sports. That's it. There's nothing else, and those type of things. And so sometimes when we have a fixed mindset, it can exclude us from potential opportunities that we can have in life. I didn't realize it then, but I do now. Now moving into, wrestling, it was like, do you guys know what eligibility is when it comes to playing sports? Everybody kind of know what that is? So basically you got to maintain a certain GPA in school in order to play sports. And so for myself, that was D's. It was like high D's, okay? Maybe low C's. I didn't care about academics. I didn't really have an adaptive mindset. It was very fixed on like, I can go out there and lift weights. I can do, sports and all that, and I'll be a shoo-in to any university. Now, what I didn't realize then is that, like, once I get to university, I'm going to have to apply myself academically in order to maintain those things. But that's when that's when I was a lot younger. So anyways, end up going to a 3-day wrestling tournament. It was nothing out of the ordinary. Large bracket, Northeast Oklahoma, lots of very good athletes there. And yeah, so I was a sophomore in high school, and I did well enough. I battled through 2 days, wrestled some really tough dudes, ended up having some other superficial injuries and stuff like that, but nothing out of the ordinary, So the last day of the tournament, I came downstairs to my house, and I kind of told my mom, I just said, I was just feeling tired and wasn't feeling like going. But, one of the things about being resilient and being relentless and just having that mindset of like, I'm going to push through whether I feel like it or not. Circumstances can change, but you may not have the same opportunities that you would if you don't do it then, right? So ended up, talked to my mom, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to get up and go do it. I ended up going and doing it, right? So we wrestled all day, last day of the tournament, and then we were leading up to the finals match, which is at nighttime. So it was about 9 o'clock at night, just kind of warming up. We kind of broke for a couple hours just to, they go eat and they set up the mats, and it's almost like they go through each weight bracket, and it kind of showcases them through an auditorium with about 5,000 people or so, give or take. And so end up going to this wrestling tournament, and I was like, all right, I'm going to wrestle this guy. Never wrestled him before. He was a senior. He was a big guy. I remember going up against him, and we ended up becoming what's called stalemate. And what that is simply, we just couldn't get anywhere. Just trying to, in wrestling, you can pin them on their back or you can beat them by points. I couldn't get anywhere with them. So I chose down, which in wrestling, what that means is that they flip like a coin, and you have like a colored band around your ankle. Okay. So I got to choose what I wanted, and I chose down because I knew if I could get away from him, I would score 1 point, and then I could win the match. That was what it was about, was winning the match. So shot up, just try to get away from him and stuff like that. And things that I have done a million times, it failed. Whenever I shot up, he basically took his shoulder and put it right into my back and pushed me forward. And that kind of propelled me forward to where I landed head first. And then when I landed, it bent my neck, and it basically got stuck, and then I shattered my neck. I mean, I remember it. I could hear it, feel it, smell it. It was pretty bad. It was instant spinal cord injury. He knew it. And even confirming later on in our news, we had a news meeting where we met for the first time. He said that he could actually hear my neck break on the outside of my body. He knew something was wrong. And so that's kind of the short of my story of how I had my spinal cord injury. Now, they basically backboarded me, and they sent me to St. John's in Tulsa. And basically kind of go through all the stuff. You know, they ended up, it's very barbaric what they do when you have a spinal cord injury. Like, and this is where I really started getting my baptismal by fire on what it's going to take to be resilient and relentless in this life. That you either are or you're not. There's no in between. There's no middle ground with it. Okay. And so I'm like, they roll you, and I'm like, what can I move? What's wrong with me? I'm having issues breathing. And at that point, they were starting to do suctioning down my nose because my lungs weren't working right, because I had broke my neck so bad where it was impairing my ability to breathe. So they confirmed, did an MRI and everything, that I did indeed break my neck. I shattered my cervical fifth and sixth vertebrae, and that they were going to try some other methods that, like I said, are very barbaric to straighten things out, align things, you know, let the body heal. And so my first experience with what is it going to take to get my life back, I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. I have a life to live. And so my first test in resiliency was getting bolts drilled into my skull while I was awake. And so it's called, it's traction basically for your skull. And they came out and they just get them all aligned and they drill them onto your skull, and they tie basically it's some type of mechanism, and they hang 100 pounds off the bed, and they're trying to basically kind of pull everything out and align everything, and it didn't work. But I knew, like I said, that wrestler mentality that was really deep in me, and that resiliency was about to be tested, that's for sure. And like many of us, we go through things and we're just like, man, is this really worth it? And seeing the fruit and all the things that have happened now, absolutely it was worth it. And I'm so glad I never tapped out. So that didn't work. Started having issues, and then ended up going into surgery. They put a bunch of plates and screws in my neck, and came out still having issues breathing, put me back under, had a tracheostomy done, and they put me full-time on a ventilator. And so when I came out of that surgery, I couldn't move at all from my neck down, and that's all I had. So like I was saying, that we just have to be resilient no matter what we face, you know, and just like, you know, broken wheelchair parts, or, you know, health issues, or being hospitalized, or those type of things. And that's where, like, I really, like, I've talked about that resiliency of, like, until the wheels fall off. I absolutely mean that. Absolutely mean that. Okay. But what helps a lot of times as we're maintaining this mindset is identifying something that you're passionate about. I knew that if I could identify something I was passionate about, I would die to everything else, right? So they shipped me off to, that sounds really awful, but they put me on a medical jet, and they sent me off to Craig Hospital in Englewood, Colorado. Everybody familiar with Craig Hospital? One of the best neurological recovery facilities in the state of Colorado and in the US. People come there from all over the world. So in that process, I learned how to breathe again on my own as the spinal swelling went down, learned how to move my arms again, and was able to identify a passion in that process. I didn't know what therapy was. I didn't know what higher education was. We just broadly talked about college, but we didn't really, get in depth about those things in my childhood, because my parents were working 3, 4, 5 jobs, whatever. But then I had to think about, yes, it was really going to test me to live the life that I want to live. And how was it going to test me is because some things I started thinking about is, well, if I could identify something I'm passionate about, what do I do with my life? 1, 2, am I wanting to be financially independent? 3, am I wanting to have a family? 4, what am I wanting to do with life that could be fulfilling, right? So kind of a little bit how I became into therapy realm and those type of things was I ended up, I'm inpatient. I got a C collar on. I can't move. Life is really bad. They're just trying to figure out, what are we going to do? What are our next steps? He's going to be in a wheelchair. Is this permanent? Is he paralyzed? Is he going to walk? What's going on? Because we don't really contemplate the severity of the injury at that time. We don't understand what a central nervous injury is. And you really start throughout the years, you really understand 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 23, I'm probably going to be paralyzed, but it's okay. Life is good still, right? Remember that? resilient, relentless, and ruthless with this life, no matter what comes at us. If we're stuck in a wheelchair, it's good. If we walk, it's good. Whatever, I'm going to maintain that attitude and that drive forward, and I'm going to do this until these wheels fall. I'm seriously going to do that. I will. So I'm inpatient, and there's probably about 50 of us, maybe, and we were started around age 15 and up. So I was like, I turned 17 in the hospital, and then we had like some 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and you hear all these other stories, and there's something about hearing other people's stories and getting some perspective that just kind of really encourage you. And I mean, I heard, the guy who his friends were killed in the car wreck, and he was left paralyzed, but trying to go through, go forward and not stop. And what I still remember, he told me, he said, it doesn't really matter how many steps you go backwards as long as your feet are going forwards. And that's true. It is true. Even though we don't feel like it. Feelings don't equate to, I have to be stagnant, I have to be depressed, or I have to be stuck, right? It just means those are other hurdles that we have to figure out a way to get over, right? So A goes to Z, and there's all this, right? So how are we going to do that? Okay. So one of the nurses, she was like, this guy's not doing good. And he's, you're there. Your only job when you're there is just to do PT, physical therapy, occupational therapy. That's it. So if you're not doing that, then they start saying, well, maybe we need to change you to a different hospital, or if you're not going to work, send you home, those things. Right. Okay. That's just real. People want to get better. Okay. So she said, if I talk to him, I was like, what am I going to talk to him for? What is that all about? And so, so when I ended up, going and talk to him, hey man, what's going on? What's up with life? All the above, he just told me how bad it was. I know, I'm there with you and stuff. But for some reason, whatever I said to him, it seemed to empower him and motivate him. I don't remember what I said, but I knew like every time that, we can help somebody, it's an opportunity to help change a life. That maybe those, whatever words that were spoken, changed the trajectory of not just his family, but him having a family and his children and those type of things, right? That's one of the things that I believe about, like speaking life and avoiding cynicism and all those things. We're going to speak life in a situation where we pause about a situation, because you never know what's going to happen. As a, sound, if you look at it scientifically, it's a wave, right? And so if I speak positive things into people's lives around me, have a positive mindset, those things, it's only going to continue. I don't know. I feel like for eternity, right? You never know. So he got motivated, and I was like, all right, sweet. If I could do that for the rest of my life, I'll do that. I literally was like, I get out of there, and I was like probably closer to May, June. I come home, and then I go back for my junior year of high school. And I told myself, if I could do that for the rest of my life, I'll do that. I don't know what that is, but talking to people and helping inspire them and motivate them and help them to keep going, I can do that. I can do that. My body may be paralyzed, but my mind and my mouth aren't. So there's that. So I get back to my junior year of high school, and this is where, I through that whole time, just being relentless, being resilient, and being ruthless. Just like, they come in, you got trach issues, you got PT issues, you got catheter issues, colostomy issues, getting fitted for wheelchair issues, people not doing what they're supposed to do, delays, all that I'm going to be relentless no matter what comes at me. And that at the beginning of my life, I had to decide, no matter what happens in my life, those are going to be the basic structural constructs of how I look at every situation. That if I could say resilient, relentless, and ruthless with anything that comes along, and I'm going to adapt no matter what it takes, then I knew that, everything else, it's not going to say it's going to be easy, but I already know the plan before I get there. And even when the problem comes, you're like, I've been testing on this my whole life. It ain't a big deal. Let's get it. So that's why I like sometimes when, clients, they come and, they tell me how bad their life is, and I'm like, you're doing better than me. And they ask me how, and I'm like, well, you like walked into my office, there's that. So, just you can use your wheelchair as a double-edged sword. I'm not even kidding. And they're just like, man, I kind of feel bad. Like, you're right. Like, yeah, I know I'm right. So let's get it. What are we working on? You only get one life. So come back. And then I finished up all my high school stuff, just trying to figure out my body. It was just rough. I started my junior year, and you're dealing with all the other things. Like, I had my first heel wound. I dealt a lot with dysreflexia. Anybody, if you know what that is, autonomic dysreflexia, that can kill you quick. So anything that causes me pain or discomfort from my level of injury down, which is right here, down, can elevate my blood pressure, slow pulse, redness, blotchy, high blood pressure, and eventually kill you. So I had within 30 minutes. I'll just throw that out there. But I was just like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out the heel wound. I'm going to figure out what's causing dysreflexia, the catheter issues. How can I be independent? What do I need to do to be successful? So graduate high school, some of this, resilient, relentless, ruthless, adaptive mindset started kicking in. I could tell you times where somebody would park their car in front of the curb down. A teacher wouldn't accommodate you. You would get docked for points because you didn't get your assignment in on time, but your hands don't work. And instead of using that frustration as to being a stuck point, it was like, oh no, I'm going to use that as fodder to light this fire to keep going forward. We're going forward. I don't think so. So graduate high school, and I thought, I don't know what I need to be to talk to people. I don't want to be a psychologist. I don't want to be a psychiatrist. At that time, I didn't really, because there's just so much academics involved, but I was like, what do I need to talk to people? And so ended up, was like, well, psychology sounds cool. That's neat. And so I just jumped into a local university here where I basically started working on my bachelor's of science in psychology. Working with the mind sounds nice. Let's do that. And not gonna lie, it continued, just issue after issue. I can tell you, like, my undergrad was the absolute hardest. And it's because half of that structure is stuff that I didn't want to do. Like, I don't want to do math. I want to talk to people. Like, why do I want to do algebra and, computer package statistics? I don't need that. And I still don't, but those were things that could derail me from going forward. So some of my college experience, I'm going to tell you guys, it was rough, but I learned the voice of reason, self-control, and the voice of advocacy. I have to advocate for myself because nobody's going to stop me. If you can't do it, who can? We're going to figure it out. Okay. And no matter what situation you're in, those are, I don't know, basic pillars of life that are going to help you continue going forward, no matter what you're doing with. If it's dealing with, I don't know, things politically or whatever, whenever you're trying to advocate and ADA stuff, or you're just trying to like figure out solutions and you just feel like obstacle after obstacle, it's not who can, who will, who's going to do it. That's good. Okay. So a little bit about that journey. I remember getting docked for points because the elevator didn't work and I couldn't get to the class and they wouldn't move the class. I can remember them piling snow when we got lots of snow on the ramp downs for the only part that was accessible for the building. I had to go home for the day. I remember the dysreflexia. I remember the teacher that wouldn't accommodate. I remember all those things, but all those are like little micro tests. Like if I say resilient, relentless, and ruthless, whatever comes across my way, there's the grounds right there. Let's get it. Whether academia is for you or not, or whatever you want to do, or whatever's next. But all those were testing grounds and proving grounds to really develop that tenacity to say that I'm not going to quit. You can't make me quit. I will just keep coming. I'll find a path around you and keep going. Right. I can still remember. Oh my gosh. I remember this. Like I told my wife about this and she was just like, are you kidding me? Like, what? So they didn't have automatic door openers and they weren't going to do them because they didn't make the buildings look nice, they said. The other issue was there's a part where you're on the path to go to a building. They kind of humped up a little bit, but if you fell off the side, you're going to get hurt. 600 pounds, wheelchair and me, like we're going to get hurt. And I still remember just like them just saying, well, we could we don't like the way the rails will look or whatever. And they had them up for like one rail or two rails for a brief time, and then they took them down like maybe 6 months later. We don't care about your safety, kind of do. Great. But I don't know. I think that, like I said, those incidences, I look at it as an opportunity to educate, an opportunity for myself to advocate, but also pave the path for people who haven't been able to pave the path. There are so many people who get lost in the cracks because nobody paved the path for them, and the path was too hard, and people get derailed, and people's lives stay in a bad place because they're not sure what to do next. I've been through so much resistance, but there's always breakthrough. There always is. It took me 5.5 years to get my undergrad done. 5.5 years. But they say like traditional students, 4 years, whatever, but I wasn't going to quit. Even when I didn't see what other people said should be. 4 years it should take you. 5.5 years. Let's tap back into that resilient, relentless, and ruthless. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to tap out. Sorry. So let's figure it out. Okay. So identifying something you're passionate about. One of the things I also utilize as well as vocational rehabilitation counselor. Some things you can also do is like an interest inventory. There's the Strong's interest inventory. There's also like the general interest inventory, but you can find some free ones online. But most vocational rehab counselors can get you connect with the free resources. And a lot of people don't realize that vocational rehabilitation can pay pretty much, if you maintain what, the academia and all that type of thing, or whatever it is, they'll literally like pay for your undergrad, most of it, right? So that's positive. They have lots of different programs that'll help you with driving if that's what your mission is or what you're passionate about. I want to drive and be independent. They have programs for that as well. I'm going through that as well right now. I got my license after 22 years. Yeah, got my license. Just waiting on them to do their thing to get the vehicle I can drive. So that's just where you got to tap in that resilient, relentless, ruthless mentality. And then being intentional about finding something. And so I think it's the bigger part of our story is that it doesn't have to be academia. It doesn't have to be, it could be, if I just wanted to have a job that I worked consistently and did a little bit better financially and had an opportunity to drive and to go have more experiences and not just stay at home and stay stuck. I'm not going to stay stuck. I won't stay stuck. So let's continue down this journey. And that's what one of the things I want you guys to think about is like, if you've had an injury, or if this is something you've done your whole life, or maybe you haven't like jumped out and done things because you're like, I got this, I got to deal with, or that, I got to deal with, or this, I got to deal with. And, what's going to be, how we're going to be, resilient, relentless, and ruthless about it. For myself, I didn't want to go out if I didn't have to have someone help me drain my leg bag. So I have a leg bag, and I had an automatic bag opener installed in my chair so I can empty it independently. So got to think outside the box. What am I going to do to, motivate myself to go and do what I want to do in this life, right? There's no with me. We're going to figure it out. Okay. Continue down journey, moved away for a little bit, finished bachelor's degree, worked some customer care jobs. And I was like, man, I want to do something where I'm not putting band-aids on things and people are just screaming and yelling at me, because it was like, hi, thank you for calling this internet service provider. And they're like, you know how much my bill is? I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to help people. So part of that encouraged me to get my master's done. And so in about 2010-ish or so, I jumped in and got my master's of science in professional counseling. That had a bunch of blunders as well. Like, I ended up relocating back to Oklahoma, state licensure stuff, all that kind of thing. So I finished my master's. And then in order to have any clinical, weight and to be able to, you can develop so much from being a licensed clinician. I jumped into the licensure process in the state of Oklahoma, which is 3,000 hours of supervision. I also had to do one test. It's an ethics test, and I had to do another one. It's called the NCE, National Counselor's Examination, 200 multiple choice, 4 hours take it, got to pass it. So many blunders that came along with that, and they were not understanding. Okay, so we're going to continue down this journey because I want you guys to see a visual timeline and envision this in your life on the things that you've been through that maybe have tried to derail you. Maybe you veered off the path of what you want to do with your life, whatever that is. Okay. So master's done, start working. It's a great job. I mean, just community mental health. I see everything. Like, I diagnose if it's schizophrenia, if it's schizoaffective, it's a crisis call, if it's you name it. I'm seeing, hearing things, smelling things that aren't there. I'm your guy. Let's come talk. Okay, we're gonna figure it out. so I started jumping into that. Loved it, and I really was pushing the ruthless mentality a little too hard. I was. I mean, there's times that I would leave work till 8 o'clock at night. And that's where you have to learn about like a lot of boundaries and having something that's sustainable, right? And so one of the ways that we find out if it's sustainable is if we push the limits and something adverse happens really bad, and then we learn from that experience that I push the limits to this point and then I back it off a little bit and I stay steady there. So that way I know that adversity came when I push it to this point, but right here is maintainable and I don't feel like I'm, struggling mentally, physically, and all the above. So I'm pushing it. And I thought, well, what if I did, instead of going to Craig, I would get my new cushion, I'll just let New Motion help me here. Biggest mistake ever. So I got a defective cushion right off the bat, and then it wasn't fitted to me properly. I got my first pressure wound on my right ischial that upon intake was 9.2 centimeters deep on my right gluteus maximus, right? Your butt. Okay. There's that. So I was just like, how do I see my clients? How do I do this? But I wasn't going to tap out, guys. Remember when I told you guys in the beginning, the resilient, relentless, ruthless is in there. I just pushed ruthlessness a little too hard. And what ends up happening is you can have something adverse happen. And so I did, of course, and I had my first wound. So I tried to heal it, and then I would see like clients half day, and then I would, after it was half day, then I would end up going down. I did 64 treatments of hyperbaric therapy. I tried to wound vac it. I tried to everything that they said to do, and it just wasn't enough until I ended up having a muscle flap procedure on my right ischium and got it fixed, got the osteomyelitis cleared up, all that type of stuff. But I knew those basic pillars over here, we're not going to stop. So I was seeing clients telehealth for over 7 months on bed rest, on my bed, on my back, looking at them, talking to them. We got to keep pushing this. I'm passionate about this now, but I need to when I get back up, I need to taper down that ruthlessness because it caused some adversity to happen, which was I needed a tire change. So anyways, ended up having about 10 surgeries or so to finally get closure. That was just like, anchor stitches, all that stuff kind of ripping out, whatever. I spent 413 days on bed rest, completely down. And then I got up when I was starting to kind of, stretch the muscles and the skin back out. I got back up where I got to help do my sister's wedding ceremony, which was really cool. So I did that in my backyard, and I was like, oh, we're at a 30-minute limit. Love you. Bye. Back into bed, not trying to repeat that, pushing that ruthlessness mentality until I break myself. So did that, and then got healed up, and then I was trying to go back to work. The state wouldn't honor any. I had I had pretty much all my hours done, but they were just like discriminating, and they're like, well, you're not grandfathered into this. You need to go back and finish this part of your another class of your master's program. I was like, I graduated in 2015. What are you talking about here? 2014, whatever. So I had to go through all that chaos, all that, take a little class. And right when I was about to go back, I started getting some really adverse side effects of my spinal cord injury. People don't know about that. I posted it years ago, so who knows if it's probably still out there. I had what's called spinal cord tethering going on. And basically the scarring kept continuing after my injury in my neck. And at that point, when I started having issues right after all this bed rest and all this chaos, and this is where we're talking about being resilient and relentless. We got to keep punching at it, keep going. It almost killed me. So my spinal cord got tethered, had all these issues, went to 5 different ERs. No, there ain't no neurology here in Oklahoma. And they're like, the last one, I was sweating on one side of my face for no reason, passing out, violently throwing up. Nighttime spasms were like, my mom had to restrain my legs, and like, something is not right. So ended up taking the last MRI, I sent it off to Craig, Dr. Fauci out there. He's been with neurology with him for years. And he's like, you need surgery like yesterday. I was like, well, that's neat. Let's go. So jump in the car, mom and I, and we go, we're doing a wheelchair evaluation, do a clinic, all that kind of stuff. This is just like, got to get my life back. So I go there, do a wheelchair evaluation. I need a new power chair. And then that was 670 miles away from my house. So about 12-hour car ride. Go into a 10-hour surgery. They basically cut me open, got my cord untethered. And then I came out, had to be 7 days flat. I still had spinal fluid leaking out of my neck through the incision. And they basically told me that, like, well, we're going to do, they did a lumbar tap to try to get that pressure off a little bit. And they would drain it every 30 minutes. And then what they would do is they came and put bedside sutures in, trying to get the clothes in, right? And all I could think about is what I was passionate about. And that, remember I signed up for this when I was 16 years, when I happened at 16, I signed up and said, that is my mentality. It's relentless, resilient, ruthless. Let's go. Okay. This is gonna get my life back. At this point, it's gonna get my life back. So I go through the 10-hour surgery. They get the fluid to stop. They send us back. I started having all kinds. I was dealing with psychosis because I had allergic reaction to meds. My mom's like not sure what to do with me. Like had to go back to ICU. Ended up they got me stable-ish. Went middle of Kansas. My mom's like saying, I told her I need to get out of the car. She pulls over, gas station. I get out of the car and I go back to sleep. Just not there. Anyways, she coached me back in the car, get back home. And then about the next 3 months, I was just so sick. I couldn't put on weight. And then I started getting scared whenever like the symptoms started coming back, the same symptoms, puking and throwing up, passing out, pinhole vision, be out. Mom would send me through. And I knew there was an issue whenever my mom gave me my meds and then I choked on, I couldn't swallow them. And she had to do the Heimlich on me. I knew something was up. My brother came in one day and he's like, what is on the back of your neck? I was like, well, I got this gnarly scar, maybe. I don't know. Quasimodo. I called it Quasimodo. This little, I had a spinal leak and didn't know it. And so the skin on the back of my neck was bubbled up like huge. And he was like, what is this? This, I've never seen this. So, and the reason, like I said, I'm going to continue sharing the timeline because once you say like resilient, relentless, ruthless in my life, no matter what comes along is irrelevant. It's how I'm going to get past it. Okay. So, did an MRI, and there was about a pocket of fluid, a spinal fluid in the center of my neck that was pushing and crushing my esophagus. I was like, well, no wonder I don't want to eat. No wonder I want to do whatever. Okay. I called the doctor. He's like, yeah, you need surgery. You got a leak. And I was like, that's neat. So go all the way back, 670 miles back to Denver, Southside Denver. They do 5 hours of surgery. They confirmed. They said like it was so much pressure that it like everywhere, fluid. They got it fixed. And then I knew I was better when I came out because I was like, wow, I feel so much better. I can swallow. That's nice. So then get that back. And I was like, Mom, I was like, what are the odds of like my chair would be done and we could just make this one trip? Well, they wasn't there. So I headed back home. All right. I was like, what's going to happen? I said, they're going to literally call us tomorrow and say, my chair is ready. I bet you money. And so what did they do? Hey, your chair is ready. It's like, well, that's neat. But I have 90 staples on my neck, so I'm probably not going to be there for a little bit. So let that kind of go a little bit. Just continue to maintain that resiliency, relentlessness, ruthlessness. And they got my staples out, went back, got my chair. Everything was good, came back. Life is great. I'm going to go back to work, right? Yeah. December 10th, 2018, I went back full time as a licensed clinician with a community mental health facility here where I just love my job, love what I do. And then probably about, I'm finishing up the supervision process, all these type of things. Wasn't long after my mom told me she wasn't feeling well. And my brother came in the middle of the night and he was like, where's mom? I'm like, in bed. It's like 2 a.m, and she had a stroke. She had a brainstem stroke and almost died. And so she got misdiagnosed about 4 or 5 times. And on the last one, I said, we're going to take you to a different facility, Mom, so we can make sure that you stay alive. And so her blood pressure was uncontrollable. She did have a brainstem stroke. We got her to a stroke facility, and she was having brain death occur where we were watching my mom change before my eyes. So went through that, continue to work, and that I'm passionate what I'm going to do and keep going. So she's recovered now. I mean, she needs a walker, but she's recovered, and she's mom. She lost 100 pounds, looks great. She's still mom, but you just really, from the very beginning, have to really nail down the passion, being passionate about what you're going to do. You're going to be resilient with it, relentless and ruthless with it, no matter what comes your way. So fast forward to today, and just as we're continuing to plan what it takes, right? So what does it take? College, certificates, networking, and then always anticipating frustrations and perceived failures throughout the process, but continuing going forward no matter what. And then once you start, being resilient, relentless, and ruthless, it's time to conquer this life, right? There's no, we live in such a great time, like with the data exchange rate between continents is unbelievable. We're talking gigabits. We have a gigabit connection here. Who would ever thought that from 56K, if you know what that is? So fast forward to now, all those things, and work full time in that time since 2018. I started my own private practice. I'm not really doing a bunch with it right now because baby's on her way. I do more like the life coaching stuff. So I do life coaching, motivational speaking, work full time. And then I also work, I do stuff with like BetterHelp and just trying to just do as much as I can. In that process of 4 years, I've learned how to be independent and live independently. I lived independently and really met the love of my life, married her. And now we have a house. We're getting ready to have another home, and we're I'm gonna be driving soon and all those things. But that's one of those things that I don't know. You go through all those tests and all those baptisms by fire, and it's not to say that it's not going to be hard, but I can tell you that it does get easier as you see it. And if you look at, it's almost like you invite hard times to come. You don't want them, but bring it. What do you got at me? I've already been through everything. So let's go. Let's get it. So that's kind of how I look at like difficult things and whatnot now. But now that I have this mindset and I want to share that with every person out there, then we come through the pruning process of life. And that is once you start meeting those goals and getting to those places you want to be and really focusing on that resilient, relentless, ruthless mentality and adapting, then we start let's dream a little bit. Let's make some goals. Like maybe I got that 1 day goal. Maybe I have an issue of just trying to be consistent. Let's just be consistent with something. And then we can start proving it to be of greater worth. So if I say, hey, I have these really big goals that I want to do, or say if you want to be a therapist, or I want to work, or I want to be independent, or I want to drive, or whatever that looks like. I always tell people let's just start with consistency. And if you can change your life by small things and consistency, then let's write some things down and grow into bigger things. So that's drinking water, taking care of myself, eating healthy, working out, coping skills, finding things that I love doing, maybe challenging irrational beliefs or thought processes that I may have from the past experiences that may potentially provoke transference onto other good things in my future. Those are always things that I always think about is how can I grow mentally and not let my past dictate what my future is going to be. Now, with that, I also feel that it's super important. Like, what can we do? I started this journey a long time ago. I've been doing this. It'll be 24 years in January 15th. But the one thing that's not have anything wrong with it is my brain. It's not paralyzed. Can I do audiobooks instead of binge watching and 12 hours of TV and playing video games for 10 hours and all that stuff. And so some of the things that I do for my habits are like, if I'm going to be resilient, relentless, ruthless, and also that the adaptive mindset, what are the processes that I'm going to change in my life in order to produce a larger yield of fruit later on in life? I'm an Audible account. I'm gonna listen to audiobooks. I'm gonna listen to podcasts. I'm gonna listen to people who are doing it. I'm gonna avoid the negative people. They're gonna still be negative 20 years from now. I'm just telling you. I'm gonna avoid things that could derail me. Something that I thought about, and I always think about this, and I'm trusted with 70 plus people's lives, is they say you're the average IQ of the 3 people you hang out the most with. So for myself, it's children. My wife is super smart. She's brilliant. But a lot of kids, I hang out with a lot of children. I do hang out with clinicians, so there's that. But it's like, man, that's so yeah. Anyways, but that's a little bit about my story. And like I said, I wanted to share this with you guys on what I do in my life.